It's strange how a single moment, a single gesture from a stranger can change the direction of your entire life. I didn't believe that until the night I walked into a small 24-hour diner on a street in Portland, carrying more loneliness than I could admit to anyone, even myself. I had moved to Portland 3 months earlier after losing my job in Denver. It wasn't just the job I lost. I lost the rhythm of my life, my friends, my routines, my small comforts, like knowing which cafe made the best coffee or which grocery store line moved the fastest. Everything familiar was gone, and in the new city, everything felt bigger, colder, and strangely quiet. My apartment was small and damp, the kind where you can hear every passing car and every neighbor's footsteps, but the silence inside it was louder than any noise outside. Most days I told myself I was fine. I kept busy with job applications, emails, long walks around the neighborhood pretending I was exploring, when in reality I was just escaping my thoughts. But nights were the hardest. That's when everything caught up to me. The fear, the uncertainty, the exhaustion of pretending I was stronger than I felt. On one of those nights, when the loneliness felt heavier than usual, I put on a jacket and stepped outside without thinking. I didn't know where I was going, I just needed to get out, to breathe air that wasn't filled with the weight of my own thoughts. After walking aimlessly for almost 10 minutes, I found myself in front of a small diner that looked like it hadn't changed since the 80s. A flickering neon sign buzzed above the door. Through the window, I could see a few empty booths, a couple of people sitting quietly, and warm yellow lights that felt almost inviting. I pushed the door open and a small bell jingled, a soft, familiar sound in a life that felt anything but familiar. The diner smelled like coffee, maple syrup, and something fried. I slid onto a stool at the counter and ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a cup of hot tea. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes but a kind smile, placed the cup in front of me and asked gently, "Rough night?" I nodded, trying not to let the worry in my chest show on my face. She didn't push further, she just walked away, giving me the space I didn't even know I needed. I sat there, staring at the steam rising from the cup. I stirred it slowly, over and over, long after the tea had cooled. I was lost in my thoughts, replaying every mistake, every failure that brought me here. The missed opportunities, the friendships that faded, the job I thought was secure but slipped away without warning. The fear of calling my family and admitting I wasn't as strong as I wanted them to believe. Every thought echoed inside me until the noise became overwhelming. That's when I noticed her, an older woman sitting alone in the corner booth. She had silver hair pulled back into a loose bun and a small leather journal open in front of her. Every few minutes, she would write something, sip her coffee, and look around the diner with soft, thoughtful eyes. I didn't think she noticed me, but she did. At some point, I wiped my cheeks and realized I had been crying quietly. I felt embarrassed. I looked down, hoping no one saw. But when I looked up again, the woman was standing. She took a slow step toward the exit, then paused. Instead of walking straight out, she walked over to me. I didn't look up until I heard the soft sound of paper sliding against the counter. She placed a folded note next to my cup. She didn't say a word. She didn't wait for me to react. She simply rested her hand gently on the counter, as if to steady the moment, then turned and walked out into the night. I stared at the note for a long time. My hands trembled as I opened it. On the small piece of paper, in delicate, shaky handwriting, were 5 words: "You're stronger than you think." That was all. 5 simple words. But they hit me with the force of everything I'd been trying to hold inside. I felt my chest tighten. My eyes filled again. But this time, the tears didn't come from sadness. They came from something I hadn't felt in months, something gentle, something warm. Someone, a complete stranger, had looked at me, really looked at me, and seen something I had stopped believing was there: strength. I rushed outside, hoping to catch her, to thank her, to understand why she chose me out of everyone she could have noticed. But she was gone. The street was empty. Only the neon diner sign was still glowing, flickering softly in the night. That night, when I returned to my apartment, I taped the note above my desk. Every morning, it was the first thing I looked at. Every night, it was the last thing I saw before turning off the light. And slowly, very slowly, something inside me started to shift. I began applying for jobs with more confidence. I pushed myself to go outside, even when my anxiety told me to stay in. I started exploring the city with curiosity instead of fear. I wasn't healed, not yet, but I was changing. Weeks passed, then months. Eventually, I found a job. Nothing big, just a position at a small local office, but it was enough to give me stability, enough to make me feel like I was rebuilding my life, piece by piece. I made a few friends. I started recognizing familiar faces around the neighborhood. The city that once felt cold and intimidating slowly began to feel like somewhere I could belong. One rainy evening, about 4 months after receiving that note, I felt a pull to return to the diner. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to feel connected to the moment that changed me. When I walked inside, everything looked the same. Same booths, same lights, same soft bell above the door. But this time, something felt different. I wasn't the same person who had walked in crying months earlier.
Thinking too much, I reached into my satchel at the same stool, ordered a tea just like before. As I waited, I noticed a young man sitting a few seats away at the counter. His shoulders were tense, his eyes were red, his hands trembled slightly as he held his coffee. I didn't know his story, but I recognized the look. I had worn that same expression, quiet, hopeless, lost. Without the notebook, tore out a page, wrote the same 5 words that had once saved me. I folded the paper gently and slid it toward him. He looked at it, confused, then looked at me. I gave him a small, steady smile. He opened the note slowly. I watched his expression change. Surprise, then confusion, then something softer, something familiar, something like hope. I didn't stay to see what he did next. I stood up, paid for my tea, and walked out into the rain. The city lights blurred through the drops, and for the first time I realized something important. The woman who helped me had no idea how deeply her words had changed me, and I would never know how my gesture might change someone else. But maybe that's the beauty of kindness. It doesn't need recognition. It doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs to be shared, quietly, honestly, from one human heart to another. That night, as I walked home, the rain felt lighter, the city felt warmer, and my steps felt steadier. Because sometimes the smallest spark of hope doesn't just light up your own darkness, it becomes a flame you carry forward, passing it from one stranger to the next. And maybe, just maybe, that's how the world becomes a little softer for all of us. Let us know in the comments which country you're watching from, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos.